Well, Troy, thanks so much for jumping on a call with me. Happy book day.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So this is the big release day, which I didn't realize I'd get to talk to you on release day. How's it going today?
It's going pretty well. I mean, most of my work has been long done before release day, so I just kind of sit down and post a couple of things on social media and reminding people that the book is out today, and we'll sit back and wait for the reactions.
I guess we should start with give us sort of the pitch behind the book Halo Divine Wind.
Well, basically, it grew out of Shadows of Reach. When I was writing Shadows, we were working very closely because there was a lot of stuff that impacts or kind of derives from Infinite. So as I was writing it, about every 100 pages, we would have a little conference, or every 2 weeks. Actually, it was not every 100 pages, it was about every 2 weeks. We'd have a conference, and I'd, shoot them some of what I was doing so they could look at it and say, yeah, this is working, or this might cause a problem with Infinite, or, don't do this. And one of those things I did, there was a scene early on when Castor is having a meeting, and I had originally just had a human pop in to do something and to deliver something for him. And I mentioned to 343 that in my mind, that human was one of the ferrets that was undercover with the keepers. And they liked the idea so much that we developed into a whole subplot that the ferrets would be there. And then we decided we had a different fate in mind for Castor at the end of Shadows, but we decided that it would be a lot more fun to send him to go on to the Ark. And that's how this story arose, is that, Castor is going to the Ark to begin to fulfill his dream of commencing the great journey and firing the Halo array. And Veda and the ferrets who have been spying on him for a couple of years now realize that they have to go too, because they're the only ones in a position to stop him. So kind of a desperate undercover mission.
Definitely makes for great reading and great fiction. How long have you kind of had a hand in the sort of extended Halo universe now? How long's it been?
Oh boy, I'll have to go back and look at the first book. I can't remember. I'm terrible at dates. But Last Light was my first book, and it was published in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, 2015. So I've been working with them from about a year before that. So it would be 2014.
So we're closing in on a decade here, which is very cool.
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah.
I'd love to know a little bit about this process, because I know you have a lot of people to coordinate with, and I'm curious how that kind of looks for you.
Well, first, let me say that everybody assumes that having so many people working with so many people actually is kind of a hassle, but it isn't actually, because everybody brings something different to the table, and it just improves it. Each person that contributes ends up improving the product. So basically, the way it works, Simon & Schuster Gallery will license, get a licensing agreement with 343 for the Halo franchise. And in that, they agree to publish a certain number of books. And then they go and they find a writer to write the books that they want to publish. And so they approached me. I happened to be sitting in Seattle with some old buddies from TSR one day, and one of them had said he was interested in writing Halo books, but somebody had talked to him about writing some Halo books, but he couldn't do it because of the conflict of interest agreements that he had at that time.
Sure.
So when I heard him say that, I said, "Oh, Halo! Wow, that's really great. That would be fun." And so he told the editor that I liked Halo, and at that time I was kind of familiar with certain elements of the lore, but I'm not really a video game player. I'm more of a reader. So I'd read a few Halo books, and enjoyed them. But when the editor heard that I was interested in doing it, he got in touch with me and said, "Okay, we want you to do a Halo book."
Mhm.
And we had a phone conference with him and some guys from 343, in which they said, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And I said, "My dad was had cancer and was dying at the time, and I was kind of sentimental, and he'd been a detective for a lot of time. So I said, well, how about a detective story?" And they just immediately, this is the thing I really love about 343 is that if they can say yes, they will. And they said, sure, right? Send us an outline. So we outlined Last Light, in which I introduced Veda Lopez. And that's how that worked to generate the initial idea. And after that, you outline the idea, and the more detail you can outline the idea, the better, because the plot, because that reduces the amount of surprises down the line, and makes it easier for everybody if everybody understands what the plan is. And we'll go back and it's all write an outline, send it in. They'll come back and say, well, let's change some of these things. Let's fix this. That won't work, or this will work, or we can do it this way, but we can't do it the way you originally outlined it. Then I'll revise the outline, send it in. There'll usually be a few more comments on it, but at that point, it's a matter of, okay, just make sure you do this, and then I'll start writing. And so I write the book, the manuscript, and it goes into my editor at Gallery, and he'll take a look at it and sometimes say, well, let's make these corrections before we send it on, or he'll just send it on. And then 343 will make a list of corrections, and usually they'll go through 2 or 3 people there, and they'll get together and combine all of their corrections into one set, so that I don't have to guess who I should be listening to. They've worked all that out in advance. Send it back to my editor, and he checks and sees if there's anything he has an issue with, and then it comes back to me, and I revise it. Usually one revision is good, but all through after that point, after I revised it and turned it in, it goes into production where it's being edited, copy edited, proofread and all that kind of stuff. And at each one of those stages, everybody looks at it again, and it'll often come back with some minor revisions that I need to make at those stages, and all the way through the second. I guess I would say that it's not unusual to have some revision requests all the way to the second proofreading stage. So they're not big revision requests. It's, just by that time you're talking a couple of lines here or there.
Sure.
I guess I'm not sure how many people at 343 read it, but I think it's probably 3 or 4. And each one of them, adds. Some of them are really great at reminding or knowing the lore and the gaming lore, and pointing that out, or saying, oh wow, this connects to this, you could push that, do this and that'll connect, the fans will really love it. And that kind of thing is really invaluable. Ed, my editor from Gallery, is really good at, I'll write the story and I'll think, oh man, I've explored that character's emotions all the way as far as I can. And inevitably, he'll come up with 2 or 3 spots where I need to push it further, and he's always right. So it's really great to have such a good team of people working with you, and each one of them brings their own unique talent to the project.
You sort of go well beyond writing at some point on both sides, at the game studio level and at your level, and it becomes sort of historian work almost, keeping the lore like you mentioned. I mean, that role has evolved quite a bit, and it seems fascinating to me. It's got to be a lot of fun,
Oh, it is. Of course, I went to work for TSR, who produced Dungeons and Dragons, right out of college, as an editor. So I've been involved in game creation, not video game creation, but
Sure.
Game creation for most of my life, for 40 years. And You learn early that when you're working with a shared world, that you can't get possessive of it. You have to remember that this world belongs to everybody. It belongs to all of the people who are working on it, all of the people who own the copyrights and the fans. So you just have to wrap your mind around, you don't get to do what you want to do all the time. You have to do what's best for the world. And if you keep that in mind, it becomes a really fascinating and very rich process. I love writing stories in big universes like this because there's so much more available to it that I can go and look at and borrow and move and utilize, that one person, a writer on his own, would never be able to generate all of the material and all of the richness that you get with a shared world like this.
Well, as we sort of wrap things up, what do you think's on the horizon for you? Do you have it planned, or you waiting to see?
Well, I have something planned, but I can't really talk about it yet. So
fair enough.
Yeah, there's always something on the horizon. I've got books that I want to write for myself if I ever get time.
Yeah.
When I retire, that's what I'm going to do is write for myself instead of media tie-ins. But
makes sense.
I love media tie-ins. They're just so much fun to do, especially when you're working with a good crew. And I've always had the pleasure of working with a good crew. But the people at 343 are the best. They just bend over backwards to give you what you need to do what you want, and to find a way that you can do what you're interested in doing.
You're clearly at the top of the game, working with the best people, so great work, and it's been fun to follow this. Let listeners know where they can sort of check things out. The book is Halo Divine Wind. It's out today. Where else can we find Troy Denning online?
You can find me on Facebook and on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, I think my handle is Denning Author. So.
Troy, thank you so much. This has been great, and we'll look forward to the upcoming unannounced projects.
All right. Thank you, Todd. Great talking with you.